Welcome to Bridge the Atlantic, where we get to know the people behind the creative industries. We're your hosts, music web designer Ross Barber-Smith, owner of Electric Kiwi, where we create awesome custom websites for bands, artists, and musicians.
And I'm singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist Marcio Novelli, featuring a lovely cold today, so we'll get through that, I'm sure. We're excited to tell you about our first batch of shirts that have arrived and are available to purchase on our website. There's a link in at our show notes to get them. Use the coupon BTA Rocks to receive 10% off your purchase as our little way of saying thank you.
Joining us this week is mastering engineer Chris Athens out of Austin, Texas. You've most likely heard his work as he's worked on some of the biggest records out there, including artists such as Drake, Coldplay, some of our favorites, PVRIS, Ben Folds, and Wiz Khalifa.
Chris was a senior mastering engineer at Sterling Sound, one of the world's premier mastering facilities, before branching out on his own to start Chris Athens Masters. We're really excited to talk about his work and to find out how artists and producers can best prepare their mixes for mastering. Hey, Chris.
Howdy.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Caffeine deprived, but good.
Yeah, we found out before the interview. Do you want to share the sad news with everyone?
Yes, I quit. Me, of all people, quit drinking coffee 2 days ago. And I feel like I've been on lithium for a while. It's pretty bad. My brain is pretty much shut down. So if I just stare at the screen for a while, forgive me.
Well, we're here to help you get through the hard times.
Talk me through it, boys.
This is true. Well, let's.
But we are going to have to do something that is probably going to put your brain to the limit, and I'm going to let Marcio, do this.
Okay, Chris, tell us 3 things about yourself that everyone should know.
3 things about, I've been trying to lose the same 25 pounds for about 35 years now. That's one thing. The studio diet is not the best. That's for sure. I'm trying to figure it out, though. The other 2 things might be I'm obviously totally addicted to coffee and caffeine. And so I'm hurting today. But what would the third thing be? I have the most beautiful kids in the world, and I can prove it.
Nice.
I love that.
I've got pictures of them.
I'm that same dad.
Look
at my kids. Look at them.
And they look like me too, which is like some weird twist of fate. How they look like me, but they're beautiful.
I know the feeling.
Well, that's great. I'd really like to hear a little bit about your own journey. I've been listening to a couple of podcast interviews that you did earlier today. I'd really love to hear a bit more about your journey, like how you learned that you wanted to be a mastering engineer and kind of how it came about, because I know that you didn't start off doing that.
No.
Kind of was a bit more of a gradual thing. And also if you can maybe share if there's been one particular highlight of your career so far.
I mean, it was kind of the beginning of my career was sort of serendipitous. I to be honest, like a lot of things in my life, when I first started, I didn't even know what it was when I got originally I got a job at Sony. That was my first legitimate job in the business. And by legitimate, I mean getting paid. And before Sony, I had spent years fooling around with recording gear and with instruments and recording music. And I never really loved playing live, but I loved recording. So I did a lot of it, but I couldn't figure out a way to make money at it or make it be my living. And one day through a series of events, I got an interview with Sony Music Studios, and I managed to land a job there. That was weird. Initially, I was offered the position of manager of the library, and I turned it down because I thought, I don't want to do that. I want to be a famous, rich mix engineer. And so I turned it down and went back to my day job managing a music store. And, I heard the opening notes to Enter Sandman one too many times and nearly blew a fuse. And I called the guy back who offered me the job and said, yeah, I'll take anything you got. And he had already filled that position, so it took another 8 months of constant calling and pleading my case to finally get the timing right where there was an opening. So they hired me. And then it took me about 3.5 years to get out of the library. It was a good job, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the technical department. Nobody had ever gone from the library to engineering. Apparently, I was in the wrong department. So I just determined that I was going to be the first guy out of the library and work my way into mastering. And my first gig was a very glamorous one. I was doing tape copy on the night shift. And, one thing led to another. I think the first part of my career was really typified by my ambition. Like, I think coming to the job that I wanted really late in life. I didn't become an engineer until I was 30. I got the job in the library when I was 27 or so. I came to it so late that I looked around me and I saw, all of these other people working as engineers who were about my age and had 10 years experience. And I always kind of felt like I was working from a deficit, working from behind. And that kind of pushed me. I worked extremely hard and always said yes to everything, which was sort of an instinct. I felt like, like I had to work like my hair was on fire. And apparently it was on fire because it's all gone now. But so I just said yes to everything. And I got really lucky with a couple of people who were working at Sony. Sony was a very big studio, and I had a lot of things going on. And I made some friends in the who were engineers and assistant engineers, and a couple of them asked me if I would master their records. It didn't bother them that I didn't have a discography or anything, and because I would do it for free. And so I did those records for free, and those led to other gigs that were actually paying gigs. These guys would introduce me to their clients and vouch for me, which was huge. And eventually I got my foot in the door. Again, got lucky. Right place at the right time. I was one of the few people doing new release work at Sony instead of just reissue. And one of the things that happened was that Vlado Meller, who was doing most of the really big stuff at Sony at the time that was new release, he had a client that he didn't feel like working with because they didn't have enough money for him. And he couldn't be bothered really because it was just singles and really nothing. And he just said, "You want them?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." And that turned out to be Raucous Records, which is sort of a famous conscious backpack style hip hop label that eventually spawned artists like Mos Def and Talib Kweli and Pharoah Monch and people like that. And I did all those records. I started doing their records when the president of the company was delivering the tapes himself. And one thing led to another. My reputation grew a little bit, and people started calling. And that was really the beginning. The next step was just taking a chance. Things were looking good at Sony, albeit progressing slowly. And one of my friends who used to work at Sony got a job at Sterling Sound. And she called me up one day and said, "Hey, do you want to work for Tom Coyne and be his assistant?" And I knew it was a step back in terms of what I was doing at the time because I wasn't assisting. But I also knew it would be an opportunity to really play in the big time. And so I said, yeah. And that's how I got my job at Sterling.
Well, that kind of brings me to how I met you. I mean, I don't know if you remember this. This was actually 10 years ago. 10 years ago this year.
Of course I remember.
10 years. Of course it would be 10 years ago this year. This is what happens when either you don't have coffee or you're sick or both. So, my first solo release, back then I released under the name Euphoria's Depression, and under some good advice from a producer I worked with, I dropped that moniker for my name down the road. But you mastered that acoustic EP of mine, The Overture, way back in the day, and you were very kind about it because, I mean, who was I? You know what I mean? And you were very, very nice about it, and you helped it sound listenable. And then fast forward down the road, actually, this is something I've told Ross. One of the reasons I want to have you on the show is I'm not sure if you remember the time I made it out to New York, and you invited me to come to Sterling, and you sat down with me. It must have been like 1 or 2 hours just straight, and you just gave me advice. You didn't have to. You're a busy guy, and I think this might have been. It wasn't 10 years, probably 5 or 6 years ago or something like that. Anyways, that meant a lot to me, and it still does. And you didn't have to do that. And so thank you if I never thanked you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope the advice was not completely half-assed.
No, it was meaningful, and it still sticks in my head. Basically, the main thing I got from that, which I want to say here because it's so important for our listeners and everything, you said, fuck everything else. Fuck caring about a record deal. Fuck just... anything.
I say fuck a lot.
You did, and that's why. And basically, what it came down to is care about your fans, give them what they want. That's it. And you know what? Because I was going down I'm not going to say I was going down the wrong path, but my mind was more in like, oh, I got to get this, I got to get these people.
Got to get a deal.
Yeah, and I think that's what I came to you asking about. And you know what? You gave me the best advice, and I followed that, and it worked out. Just focus on those who actually care about the music, and that
take care of your fans, man. That's it.
Man. That's it. But talking about mastering though, and how you mastered my EP, I'd like to know, or I'd like to ask you to tell people what mastering engineering is, because a lot of people don't know this. I didn't know this, and luckily I found out, and I found you, because it can make or break. Really, it's not going to make or break. It's so important for it's like you don't put out a proper film without color correcting it. You don't. Yeah. Or I feel like
my wife is a film director.
Okay, there we go.
I like to tell her that film is 98% sound. So
how does she react to that?
She's used to hearing it.
Chris, can you tell us? Can you explain a little bit about what a mastering engineer does and what a musician or producer should be looking for when hiring an engineer?
Absolutely. I think it's like everything else. It's changed over the years. There's types of mastering now. If depending on the type of music you're working on and what the target audience and format is, but in some ways and on some gigs, you are a hype master. The idea is to make whatever track you're working on as exciting and big and loud and three-dimensional as humanly possible. And there are other gigs where your job is to take something that's already beautiful and perfect, like an incredible pop mix or something that's just is what it is and is perfect. And yeah, Pat was incredible. That guy is amazing. And you kind of shepherd it through without doing any harm, kind of like a Hippocratic oath. But essentially, technically, what it is the final creative step before manufacturing, or in the modern era, before delivery. And so you essentially you're essentially kind of the arbiter of the final overall tone and dynamic of whatever project you're working on is. And that might mean making it louder or not making it louder, making it brighter. I like to tell my clients that I've got bass, mids, and highs. It's a little more sophisticated than that, but that's essentially it. I'm a human loudness button. And, we take it there as far as we can go and ensure that it still sounds good. And we're also kind of like to our repeat clients and people that rely on us, that trusted last set of ears that it passes through before going out into the world.
Something I've always been interested in. Do you master based on each song, or do you master based on the album as a whole, or both?
Yeah, both. Absolutely both. There are circumstances where you would want, like, for instance, a single that isn't actually intended to be played with an album at the time. You have a little bit more freedom in how exciting or how much manipulation you can do and still be in good taste. And because you can just push the song as far as the song can go. Whereas with the technique with doing a song kind of in its normal circumstances, if it's on a record, is a little bit different. You're also considering not only all of the songs and the overall tone of the project, but also the song that comes after it. So the transition into the next track will be rather smooth. And the reason why that is important to a degree is that the way I think of it is kind of like fiction writing. Music is intended, if an artist creates an entire world by making an album, one of the things they're excuse me, usually trying to achieve is keeping the listener in that world. And the way you do that is through consistency, because you don't want to break the illusion. And it's kind of like nothing jarring when you can help it. I mean, there are exceptions to every rule, but when you can help it, you stay away from jarring transitions. For instance, the reason why that's important is what you don't want is someone listening to your music lost in the moment and saying, "Oh, that's really loud," and then having to turn it down because they've now kind of no longer suspended their disbelief, so to speak. And they're out of your world and into their own. And you want to avoid stuff like that. Even if one song has the potential to be incredibly loud, another song, because of its dynamic or its tone, can't get that loud. You have to find a way to kind of make that transition as smooth as possible. You can't shoehorn it in, but you can affect it.
Yeah, there are a couple of other mastering engineers I've spoken to before say they just look at each song as each song. But what you're saying makes a lot more sense to me, because like you look at each song as each song, but it's the overall vibe. Again, it goes back to film, color correcting so that this scene matches this scene. So you might have shot on 10 different cameras, but it needs to look like it's cohesive.
Yes, I understand their attitude in principle, because if taking a very modern approach, a lot of people play songs in playlists or right. With other, and they mix stuff up themselves and things like that. But I'm kind of old school. I feel like the artist struggles to make not just hits, but an entire artistic statement and world. And I'm trying to both make it sound as great on a variety of formats as I can, but also make it a thing in itself, the album in itself. So to encourage people to keep listening. And every little technique you can use to get people to continue to listen means that they're deeper and deeper into that world of the album. And that's very satisfying to me. And I guess that's because that's how I grew up listening to records.
Yeah, I'm loving what you're saying, because I'm just 100% with you. And I still, even as an artist myself, I still like to make albums, even though people say people don't consume albums, but there are people who consume albums. Even if that's a smaller percentage, I want to make albums for those people, because the other people will simply like the singles. That's fine. It's about albums. I still buy albums. I agree.
I still buy albums. And also, I don't know. Some people say the album's dead, and yes, it is kind of a single culture and all that stuff. But I don't care. I mean, I like to say that and this is true in a lot of regards, but 90% of what I do is for 10% of the people, and I'm concerned with the artist first and the audience second. Because the artist is concerned with the audience, and I'm concerned with the artist. That's how it should work. And so I'm trying to help them realize their vision in the best way possible. And I like albums. I like that kind of thing. I like artistic statements that are 10 and 12 and 15 songs long. And so I don't care that it's a single culture. I make great, loud, exciting sounding singles when I have to, but I like albums.
I'm going to steal that. I'm just saying 90% for 10% of the people. I'm stealing that. That matters to those people. Those of us who do
that doesn't have a TM after it. So
stolen. Chris, are you ready for 20 questions?
I wish I had I wish I had a buzzer or something.
This is going to be one of the fastest ones. I know it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm ready.
Should I
for
start,
20
Ross?
questions.
Here we go.
Go for it.
Maybe I
Chris?
should brew a cup of coffee. Yeah, go.
Well, the first question is coffee or tea?
Oh, come on, man. Coffee, you know the answer. Always
Meat or
coffee.
veggies?
Actually, meat, believe it or not. Although I love veggies. Can I have both? Isn't this America?
Yeah.
In Canada?
Well,
and
and
Scotland?
Twitter or Facebook?
Facebook, and I hate to admit it. I don't get Twitter.
Talent or attitude?
Attitude, 100%.
I knew you'd pick
Talent is cheap. Talent is everywhere.
true.
I can't swing a dead cat without hitting somebody with ridiculous amounts of talent in this city, in New York, in Austin, everywhere. But, you know, without the right attitude, you're just a jerk on the street corner.
100%. CD or vinyl?
Music. Every way. Every way. Stream it, buy it on wax, man. I just bought a lathe. I'm totally in love with vinyl, but I love music, and if it comes on a CD, I'm going to listen to it. Experience. I have to go with experience because that's how I learned. That's how I learned my craft. I mean, I'm a high school dropout. I didn't go to college. I didn't go to recording school. I didn't do anything, much to my parents' chagrin.
Mixing or mastering?
Mixing is much more important. It's much more creative. I've done quite a bit myself, and I am in awe of great mixers. I'm totally dubious of mastering engineers in general, but the mixers, they're great. Yes.
Indie or major?
Indie. Although I love my majors, thank you for the POs and the big hits, you know, like.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you know, not a lot of indies are crushing Spotify records and being number one for 2.5 months. You know, there's pros and cons, but generally indie. Okay. PC. I mean, I'm a new convert after 10 years of using a PC. I'm getting so sick of Macs. Having said that, I have 3 of them. There might be 5 of them in the house. And even my PC is a Mac. So I think I'm probably a little confused.
Canada or Scotland?
Scotland. Are you kidding? Although, I will say this. I will say this. Sorry, Marco. You're
okay.
welcome here anytime. Canada's pretty cool too. And also, we're going to invade as soon as we run out of wood. Because there's like 6 people there, so, you know, 7 including Marcio.
Yeah.
Style or substance?
Come on, man. Look at me. Substance. And
I was going to say
it.
you're all about the style. But,
That's what I
you know.
thought.
I have these glasses. Are
I was
nice.
just
They
going
were
to say,
pretty
I like
cheap,
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, thank you.
And they
We got
feature in
the
your
similar
logo as
style.
well. So, you know, you've got
right.
that branding thing down.
That's right.
I do. That was
See?
really accidental, but I like it. You're right.
The Beatles or the Rolling Stones? Basically, Jesus or Satan.
Oh,
Back in the day.
that's so tough, man. Because listening to both groups makes me incredibly happy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Beatles probably smelled better.
This is true.
Yeah, I would
I feel like
say
they
that's
smell like
probably-
incense.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure the Beatles smelled a lot better, especially now. Well, the remaining
Batman?
Beatles.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
I mean, no, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sure that Keith probably smells as bad as most of the dead Beatles. But in general,
Batman or Superman?
Batman,
And which one smells better?
The Dark Knight. Superman smells like spandex.
Michael Jackson or Michael Bolton? It's a difficult one.
Oh, what are you doing to me? Come on, that's such a softball. I mean, hey, who doesn't love Michael Jackson?
Bob Dylan or Bob Marley?
Okay, Marley. Gut reaction.
Celine Dion or Marilyn Manson?
Can I have Marilyn Manson murdering Celine Dion?
That's good. I usually say Celine Dion dressed as Marilyn Manson if someone can't choose.
Well, that's kinky.
That's a bit
That's
a bit
very
further
kinky.
down. But
Not really murdering her. I mean, just a little.
Just a little. Whale or kale?
Whale or kale?
yeah,
We're just in
sure.
rhyming territory here.
That's all
Don't,
right.
don't really
Jesus.
think
Don't think too much
about
into
these
it.
words.
Oh, whales, but I wouldn't want to eat them.
Bette Midler or the Riddler? Again with the rhyming.
I like Bette Midler. I used to listen to that album that she used to do, that she did back in the day.
And here's the final question. Did I say that right? Question? I said like
I
question.
thought you said question. I don't really know what you said.
I speak Canadian. I know what a question is.
So we're going to ask you to pick now between Ross or Marcio.
Well, Marcio, but I
Oh.
love your accent, dude.
Oh,
I love your accent. Come on, we got a history, Marcio.
You do.
right.
You guys have got
Don't,
history.
Finally.
don't take it personally. I dig your hair.
Oh, I
I
don't.
hope he takes
I-
it personally because he usually wins. He usually wins and he's all like chill about it. He's like, oh,
But
no,
you know,
don't worry,
Marcio, maybe the
Marcio."
tides are changing.
Yeah,
Don't
maybe.
take it personally, Marcio, because that's the best accent on earth.
It's only because I've got a cold, I swear.
Scottish is Canadian accents suck. The Scottish accent is
I
the
don't
best
sound that much different than
accent
you, do I?
on
Maybe
word.
if you
No,
go
that's why it
east.
sucks. It's totally boring.
That's because I'm in Southern Ontario. I'm like, what,
Except
8
for how
hours?
funny it is when somebody says a boot.
I've never
but-
heard someone say boot. You know what, though? I've got
Marcio,
east.
you do sometimes.
Stereotypical. No, I don't say a boot. I've never said a boot.
What's it
People
all
out
about?
east talk like that. Like, I've been out east. I've toured out east. But, like, I'm in, like, the most Americanized part of Canada.
You
I'm,
guys
like,
sound like
Southern
that's what I'm saying. You guys sound
Yeah.
like us. The
Yeah.
Scottish accent
fun,
is
right?
totally exotic.
Now we are pretty much at the end here, but I do want to. I just want to ask you one really quick thing, and Ross is going to kill me because we're way over time, but that's okay.
Oh, sure.
What's just one thing that a musician or producer can do to prepare their work for a mastering engineer that would just make your life that you wish that every client did? Like, what's the ideal client?
Oh, it's really simple. Don't distort it. Don't mix it so loud. Don't capture the mix so loud that it has no dynamic range and it's distorted. Almost every other thing can be compensated for. I mean, it's nice when it's a decent balance. That's an advantage. But the number one thing that mastering engineers really can't do anything about is like you can't. I like to say you can't unbake a cake. So
yes.
it just not over driven unless that's what you want.
Is there like a certain like headroom that you'd want, like you ask people to give you, like?
No, there really isn't. I mean, actually, if you eat up all the headroom and it's a totally clean mix and it sounds great, I don't care because
Okay.
I'm not going to make it much louder. You know, it's just the thing is, if you have a very dynamic and the tones all over the place kind of mix, and you need a lot more work, then sometimes having a little extra headroom is a real advantage. If your mix is perfect, you don't really need it because you don't have to be the one making things loud these days
Right.
as a
Perfect.
mastering engineer.
Chris, we know you like Facebook the best, even though you don't want to admit it. So is that the place people can find you on online?
I do like Facebook best. Yes, I'm an old man. I Twitter. I just can't get my head around Twitter. Who cares? But yeah, I like Facebook.
Can they just search Chris Athens on Facebook and find
Yeah.
you? And cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also on Twitter too. So if they want to be ignored by me, they can also search.
You can find us, as in our show, on Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Just search Bridge the Atlantic. You'll find us. Come say hey.
As for me, I'm working on my second solo album, and you can be a part of it at Marcio Novelli. I can't say my own name. marcionovelli.com/pledge. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify, which are all my name, Marcio Novelli. I can say my name today. Same
Got
way.
that NyQuil.
You're just getting there. And I'm working on websites for various artists at the moment. You can check out my work at electrickiwi.co.uk. You'll find me on Twitter and Instagram as Electric Kiwi, and on Facebook, Electric Kiwi Design.
This episode was brought to you by Chris Keaton, the Rockstar Advocate, Buck Naked Soap Company, 30 Roses, and Social Surge. All links are in the show notes, so please check them out because they do keep this show alive.
And if you want to be awesome like them, you can sponsor the show for as little as $1 per episode at patreon.com/bridgetheatlantic.
Chris, you are a great dude. You really are. Thanks so much for chatting with us today. And just keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm going to be calling you up soon.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for putting up with me.
Thanks for watching Bridge the Atlantic. If you like what you saw, make sure to like, favorite, and most importantly, subscribe so that you don't miss each week's episode.
Please feel free to leave us a comment letting us know what you think of the show.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and subscribe to us on iTunes so that you can listen to us on the go. Thanks again for being awesome, and we'll see you on next week's episode.